Hello everyone and welcome. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel with you all. Amongst you contain people that I've known for a very long time, people I've just met, and our pre-call for this was so interesting. I can't wait to get started. So with that said, I thought we could do a round of introductions. I'm Shruti Ajitsaria. I'm a partner at Allen & Overy in our London office, and I head up Fuse, which is our tech incubator. I'm just going to hand over to James to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Shruti. Hi, my name is James Ford. I'm the Group General Counsel of GlaxoSmithKline and lead a department of about 1,000 lawyers and compliance professionals around the world. And why I'm particularly interested in this topic is that the company, like many companies, is undergoing a huge transformation, and digital is a critical part of that. So it's an expectation in most businesses, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you, James. And Mark.
Thanks, Shruti. Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Cohen. I've had the pleasure of working with the Singapore Academy of Law for the past several years. I'm also the executive chairman of the Digital Legal Exchange, which is focused on aligning the legal function with the business and society it serves. I'm interested in digital transformation because I think it poses both a great challenge and an opportunity to the legal industry. The challenges we'll discuss today is basically in getting people to think and operate differently. The opportunity is for the legal service to elevate its significance both to enterprise as well as society.
Thank you. And Ben, we've just met recently, but I was so pleased to hear that we've had so many of the same challenges. I wish we'd have met a few years previously. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Same here, Shruti. Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Eng Beng. I'm a senior partner in Raja & Tan, Singapore. I got interested in digital transformation for law firms, in particular, when I served as managing partner of Raja & Tan, Singapore for 9 years. After that, I stepped down to chair our network of Southeast Asian firms so that I actually could have more time. That's one of the reasons for me sort of taking on my present role. So that I could have more time to look at issues of digital transformation in the context of private practice. Before you get the wrong idea, I'm not an expert. I rely on my other partners who are domain experts in digital transformation, in particular Rajesh Srinivasan, whom you may have heard in another part of the conference. So I got involved in management, trying to get resources, and all-round cheerleading. I'm be very interested to hear the views of my fellow panelists as well as to share my own insights today. Thank you.
Thanks, Eng Beng. And I think sometimes we in law get stuck a bit in an echo chamber, and it's always really good to hear a fresh perspective. And Rena, our conversations have given us that. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for having me in this event. And I could tell that probably I'm the only one who is not in the legal field, right, in this panel, and also probably in the audience as well. So I'm really happy to share my perspective. So my name is Rena Chai. I'm with Microsoft Asia. I've been in the tech industry for more than 25 years, and I've helped a lot of businesses to transform to digital in my field of work. And my passion in the digital transformation is really rooting from my 5 years working in the emerging countries, right? As I do believe that digital transformation will help a lot of businesses to leapfrog, to be much better than some of those current businesses who may have the legacy system, right? Because they don't have the legacy infrastructure and the processes that's already established that they need to change. Right, what I believe that some of these emerging country or even emerging industry, for example, they have a lot of opportunity to leapfrog. Law tech could be one of the area that is really interesting. So I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, as the title of the panel would suggest, we are here to talk about change management and organisational culture. And I can't think of anyone better qualified in the world, really, to sort of help frame that discussion than Mark. So Mark, I just thought it would be helpful if you could give us a bit more of a bird's eye view of what we're talking about here in terms of the industry as a whole. Oh, Mark, you're on mute.
What is culture? It means many different things to different people, but let me take a crack at what I think a working definition might be for purposes of the discussion that's going to follow. I would view culture as the thread that binds the fabric of a particular organization, or for that matter, a society. It's what that organization thinks is really of primary importance. It's how the organization defines itself. It's what's important to it in terms of what it measures, what it delivers, and where its focus is. So in the context of digital transformation, a lot of people think that digital transformation is all about the latest shiny tech tool. They think that perhaps it's about AI, or perhaps it might be about data. Make no mistake about it, of course, technology is an enabler of digital transformation. And of course, data is the lifeline of how most digital organizations make their decisions. But the biggest obstacle to digital transformation, and this is not just my opinion, these are multiple studies of organizations that have embarked on the digital journey. The biggest obstacle is really culture and human behavior, and more specifically, the willingness of human beings to adapt to new ways of doing things, to new tools, to new structures. And the focus really of digital transformation and digital culture, as it were, is on the customer. It is an alignment of the provider with its workforce, its supply chain. That's one form of cultural alignment. And a second form and simultaneous form of alignment is between the provider and the customer. It's no longer a transactional relationship that is fostered, but it is really much more of a symbiotic relationship involving workers, the provider, and the customer. And in the case of law, really, I would see, and of course, I'm going to defer specifically to James on this point, but I see the customer as being two things. One is the legal function is serving the enterprise of which it is a part, and it must become far more aligned and integrated with that enterprise. But equally, it is about the enterprise's end customers. So in the case of a pharmaceutical company, it's what can that legal function do to assist the enterprise to be able to actually help the end users, the customers of its products and services. And I think that COVID has presented a really unique glimpse of the opportunity of digital transformation when a group of pharmaceutical companies banded together and really accelerated a process of solving a wicked problem. So just to wrap up, Shruti, I would say that, culture to me is both the greatest stumbling block to legal transformation, as well as an opportunity for lawyers to kind of recalibrate their purpose and say, why are we here? And the answer is, spoiler alert, it's not just to do good legal work, but it is to help people solve wicked problems.
Thank you, Mark. I love solving wicked problems. Rena, having heard what Mark's had to say, obviously the industry is at a particular point in general, I suppose, and we've got quite a lot of work to do to move forward and start to recognise that shift in perspective. What, in your experience, does that journey require?
Yeah, as what Mark has outlined, one aspect definitely is the culture aspect of it, and then the other one is the interaction with the client, and then also your internal business processes, right? So we have a very structured approach in terms of how we work with our customers and partners to help them to build up the competency to support the businesses to transform. So the 3 steps or 3 parts into typically how we look at it. The first step is, obviously you have to look into why you want to transform, right? So there are multiple reasons. It could be due to competition, right? Or due to pandemic, right? We're all experiencing the pandemic situation today. And that forces a lot of businesses to think about how do they transform to digital so they can continue with their businesses while the pandemic is going on and we don't have an end to it yet, right? So that's, the first step is really identifying why you want to transform. And then the second step is what you want to transform. So why and then what, right? So the what is what Mark has pointed out. There are a few things, right? It could be your internal processes, right? Some of your business processes, maybe it could be paper-based today in terms of how you store your client information, data retention, etc. So that could be one of the reasons why you're thinking about how do you want to transform, right? And the second part is how you interact with the customers, right? So that's the other key component in terms of many of the reason why a lot of businesses are looking at transformation, right? So that's the what you want to transform. And the last part is the how, right? So as Mark mentioned, definitely in the how part, right, culture is one piece, and we have a very structured a way to approach it. First step is, solution and technology is only one piece of it, right? There is really, in a nutshell, we think that there's 5 steps to it. First, you need to identify what's the vision or the plan in terms of how you want to transform, right? Relating to what you want to transform. And then next is what's your vision, right? You may need an expert in that field to help you to vision what that look like and plan it out. And the second thing is design, what is that timeline and the phase that you want to go through, because you may not want to do everything at one time. You may just want to transform the internal process first, and then you phase it out and then transform your customer interaction process later, right? That could be one approach. So you need to phase it out and plan it in the way. And the third one is you could build out the solutions, or you could get partners who has that capability, who has worked in the field and who has helped company to transform, especially in the legal field before. And then, bring out that solution, what it could look like for your business. And the fourth part is really critical and is important as well, Mark has mentioned, the internal readiness and cultural aspect of it. And a lot of this resistance that we have seen as a company going through a digital transformation is usually result of fear of losing their job or fear of unknown, right? And we realize that in many cases with a proper training, education, bringing them on board, taking time, that will help them to kind of overcome the fear and overcome some of those cultural aspect and issue that we've been seeing. And the last part is that once we transform, it doesn't mean that, we're done, right? There's an ongoing maintenance in terms of how do you continue to support the businesses and the team to continue to gain that knowledge, especially in the digital transformation, because it takes time. And we're all human, right? Change takes time. So it will minimum, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes a year for you to fully transition to the new process. So that's kind of in general the framework that we go through, and also a lot of experiences that we're working with company, some of the issues that we encounter, and some of the suggestions that we have to overcome that.
Thanks, Rena. And any sort of big pitfalls that people should try and avoid as they work through that framework? Have you seen people make the same mistakes over and over again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially the business process part is an iteration, right? There are many different type of solutions out there, right? And I think, when you vision it, you may think that, okay, this is what you want to look like. But then actually once you implement it, then you realize, okay, there are some things that, not quite working well. Then you have to go through the iteration process, version 1, version 2, version 3, right? Continually improve that. So digital transformation is not really like a, you get on with it and you're done deal. You need to continue to improve on that business processes, and technology evolve as well, right? So the same thing with business processes needs to evolve with the technology. So that's kind of some of the things that we are seeing some of the businesses going through. That will be a good thing to kind of keep in mind. Once you transform, change your business processes, but you need to continue to update and iterate it.
And I suppose that iteration works in one way when you've built something internally and therefore are in control of the iteration process. And our experience at Alanova, at least, has been that where you're working with startups, the iteration works perhaps more easily because you may have more close contact with the people who are able to make the change. Just interested in your perspectives, though, and how you do that when you are working with a more established company, a bigger company with whom you have no kind of kind of, I suppose, influence over their roadmap?
Oh, you mean working with a technology provider
Yes.
who you may not
So if
have?
you're- Yes.
Yeah, I think some of this technology are pretty standard, right, today. And I looked up at maybe what are some of the potential things that in the legal field that you may need. So one of them, I think, is the document retention, and the other one, e-discovery, in terms of how do you find your documents that you have, right? Those are some of the easily available tool set that has been built up, and it's pretty available across the tech industry, right? So I'll give you one example, productivity tool set that is available in that industry. So things like Google Suite or Microsoft 365 Cloud Solution, right? So these are some of the tools that are available, well established, that has a capability to allow any businesses to be able to work with their internal processes and also interacting with their client and customers, right? So, and of course, there are more localized partners, right, who specialize in the legal field, will be able to customize some of the solutions specific to the to legal field, right? And and I think what you may want to kind of keep in mind is, as you're working with some of this established partner, look at their technology backend that they use, right? What type of provider do they use? Because in some of the, for example, the technology platform, it could be G Suite or it could be Microsoft. I work for Microsoft, so I'm passionate about Microsoft technology. But of course, there's a lot of provider, they will provide the services and the solution with the, let's say Microsoft platform at the back, right? So I think that's something that, you may want to probe a little bit as you're working with some of this legal tech provider, right? So that you know what solution that you're onboarding with. Yeah.
Thanks, Rita. That's so helpful. So we've kind of looked at the question of digital transformation from a bird's eye view, and I understand the theory now, but it's always good to hear from the man or woman on the ground. So James, just really interested to hear how what we've just talked about has played out in reality in GSK, and what's worked well for you guys and what hasn't worked so well.
Sure. So I'll try and give you an insight into our journey, our experiences, which will probably never finish, actually. It's an ongoing quest. We moved a long way in the last few years. And when I try and summarize how we've done it, the transformation requires clear vision. It does require technical expertise, which is never going to be me. And in and of itself, that won't do it. So you do need to have a great understanding of how you change behaviors, how you can influence change culture, and nurture talent, because it will change over time. Now, I'll give you a bit of background. When I became GC in 2018, we announced fairly quickly, within months, that we'd split the company into two large listed entities. Part of that journey, which is well advanced, is how do you move functions, legal, along the value chain? How do you ensure that you're in the top quartile of whichever competitive set you're in? And obviously, as the general counsel, whichever leader you are, you have to use all the tools at your disposal. So we have invested heavily in tech within GSK Legal, and I'll give you a few examples and then just explain how we've tackled the cultural side of it, without which you can't really achieve any of this transformation. So some examples for us would be a new document management system that we've put in, advanced databases on IP, e-discovery tools, a lot of this underpinned with AI, automatic document retention, AI-based chatbots, reverse auctions with outside counsel, global matter management, and these won't be unusual to many of you, but they're all very relevant about driving efficiency, creating the analytics and the data that help you make informed decisions as you run a function. And then very recently, we've launched a contract lifecycle management system linked to probably about 30 markets at the moment, but linked into our new Bangalore legal department that does many of our frequent agreements, with thousands of them every year. And it's new, and there's bound to be some teething troubles, but so far it looks like it's going to be a huge success. Wonderful people we've recruited into that organization. And then even more recently, we've just launched a tool called ServiceNow, which effectively streamlines many other older tech tools, enables our clients and our lawyers to triage matters, and it's not in every market yet, but also puts the right work with the right lawyer automatically. So it just saves a lot of time. And again, things like frequently asked questions can be dealt with very quickly through chatbots. And it just, in theory, and I think it will do this, will create more space for the lawyers to move along that value chain. Now, it sounds like a lot, and it actually is a lot. And because of that, you have to have a real reason to believe. Why are you doing this? What is the value proposition here? And for us, as a very large, global, complicated company, I think it does become a reason to believe, if you're a lawyer progressing through your career, that you'll do less and less of the mundane, and you'll be involved more and more in the strategic, more high value stuff. And it's not going to be overnight, but there's a gradual shift towards it. It drives talent retention, it drives development. I think, putting it very objectively, there's a better return on investment as well for the organization. But all of this requires huge cultural change. And we've dealt with that in a number of ways. And one of the first things that I did was to put together a strong legal ops group in the center of the legal function. And that legal ops group, although it is staffed somewhat with some lawyers who are fantastic, it also has project management experts, it has technology experts, it has experts in capability development and communication. That might sound a little bit odd for a law function, but now we're 1,000 people, and I can't tell you how valuable that team is in helping me drive the change, set the tone, reinforce the messages. All of those kinds of things are vital. And they were instrumental in developing a 3-year technology roadmap right at the outset. We've kept to that. We've underpinned that roadmap with a clear value proposition, which is effectively to create the highest value for the lowest effort. Sounds super simple, but you have to, there's a trade-off between your spend, the complexity, and the benefits that you get. And you also have to have a really comprehensive change management skill set. If you don't have that, any launch that you undertake is not likely to land well. And it's not always perfect, even with those resources, but it helps a very, very long way. Lawyers typically, Shruti, are not great at change, but our clients are. And our clients these days don't really cut us any slack in that space. So we have to get with it. We have to equip ourselves, staff up, if you like, with the right skill sets that often aren't going to be legal skill sets. Explain the reason to believe, bring our stakeholders, which are all the people we expect to live with the change and operate with the change with us. That's training, it's communications, it's tracking, it's monitoring. Senior leader buy-in as well is really important. I think one overarching message for me, digital transformation doesn't happen around us. You know, we're in the center of it, and we're moving at pace in lockstep with our customer. And our customers are internal, but as Mark says, ultimately they're also external, and you're moving with their best interests at heart, because you're able to put more resources into things like R&D in the pharmaceutical industry, things that our shareholders expect. So it creates a more valuable proposition for the legal function or legal and compliance function. It puts resources where they should be, drives talent and development. And I think I'm seeing a really noticeable difference already, actually. But ultimately, strong change management is essential in this space.
Thank you, James. I could listen to you all day, because it gives me such hope for how things can move. And actually, you've covered a lot of ground. Like, it feels to me like the pace at GSK must have been very, very quick, and I'm amazed by all the things that you've achieved. So huge congratulations. Sort of looking from the other side of the fence, so from private practice, I think sometimes the challenges can be slightly different, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about how you put the client, in your sort of sense, at the heart of what you're doing and move in lockstep with them. We in private practice are trying to do the same, but sometimes that may feel slightly more difficult. Engbeng, what's been your experience with that?
Well, I think the challenges in the law firm context are a little bit different. And I must say that Mark's opening comments on how organizational culture is it's really the most important thing to consider when we talk about digital transformation. I think that rings doubly true for law firms. And I just start off by saying that, I've come to the conclusion, after looking at the issue from all angles, that digital transformation in the law firm must be top down And when I say top down, it means from the partners down to the most junior lawyers or staff. And that's not immediately apparent because usually the partners are the ones who are most resistant. Probably through no fault of their own. It's just that the senior lawyers are the ones who have been doing things a certain way for 10 years, 20 years. We're sometimes a bit of a prima donnas. I'm guilty of that. I don't like to change, to grapple with new technology because I think it affects my effectiveness. And obviously, new technology is going to affect my effectiveness the first time I use it, the second time I use it, the third time it will be less, the fourth time I will get good at it, and from the fifth time onwards, I actually get better. And eventually, I hope that you will turn into a better lawyer than before, because now you're equipped to practice for another 15 years rather than to have to use outdated methods. But lawyers are resistant. A lot of successful partners are the ones who see business coming in and say, well, I've been doing it the same way. Business keeps coming in. My clients support me. There's no reason why I should suddenly change the way I work. And I'm not saying that it's selfish or anything like that. It's very, very human. It's an instinctive reaction. And this is why I say, there has to be sort of a jolt given to all partners to face the reality. It's no longer about just investing in technology so that our teams have new technology to work on. It's not just the teams, the partners themselves have to use it, because a lot of the activity in a law firm is lawyering. And lawyering takes place by the lead lawyer making the decisions, dealing with the clients, and then working together with the team. The team will never learn how to use technology properly if the partner doesn't use it himself or herself. And that's the reality on the ground. Just taking experience from my own practice, which is disputes practice. If I don't go paperless and use PDF documents for hearings, the team will never learn the importance of hyperlinking, tabbing, making sure everything is very clear, putting it in folders. I can't possibly tell them, look, you guys go and do all that properly and make sure you learn all that, but give me 2 boxes of hard copies for my own reference. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, the partnership structure, I think, is particularly powerful if we can get all the partners to move in the same direction, because you've got this peculiar structure where everyone who is sort of a significant fee earner in the business also having a stake in the business. So theoretically, the interests are all aligned. And say for 150 partner practice, you actually have 150 stakeholders, real stakeholders, pushing the firm in the same direction. And for digital transformation, I think that's very powerful. That's going to filter down to all levels of the organization. If you've got partners pulling in different directions, I think that's going to be a very, very serious hurdle for digital transformation. So I do think the critical thing that needs to be done is to have all the partners sort of sold on digital transformation, not just lip service, not just saying, yeah, I'll get my team to use it, but really believing in it. Don't look at it as merely an investment that needs to be done for the office, and go back to your traditional perspective of, I'm with a law firm because the law firm gives me a platform to practice, and I practice, I bring home the bacon, and I support the law firm, and that's about the relationship. That's the core of the relationship. I'm not saying that's how partners view the partnership nowadays, but we really have to move very, very far away from that. It's about building the organization, it's about building the culture, it's about making sure that the young generation will see the organization as a place where they can learn for their future. Right? I think gone are the days where aspiring young lawyers would say, well, there's this very senior lawyer who's very famous, and I want to do my training or my internship or under this person and learn all the skills that he or she has. I think that's pretty outdated, because by the time you become a lead lawyer nowadays, you'll be 10-15 years, a lot would have changed, right? You've got to, I think, and we've all got to realize that the younger generation have got to get ready for the future, and we've got to help them, and that's how the organization gets stronger, right? So top down, I think is everything to me. It's a constant persuasion exercise, but I think it has to be done.
And just listening to you talk about, I suppose, partners acting as guardians of the law firm and handing something better over to the younger generation, I thought it was really interesting to see that you guys had made an investment in some legal tech together with some other law firms. And I just wanted to understand a bit more about your experience in, firstly, collaborating with other law firms, but also the decision making around, asking people to take the money from today's pot, I suppose, to invest in the future.
Yes, that particular project, which is a sort of a tech platform that we hope will help lawyers all around the world. It's called Lupl, L-U-P-L. That's being developed by a company which Raja and Tan Asia, CMS and Cooley are working on. That's an interesting project, because it's not like a piece of software which we are investing in for our own practice. And really that's been a very good experience. We were wondering whether that sort of collaboration would work between technically competing law firms, although we operate in quite different parts of the world. But I think it's gone very well because the motivations are the same. I had some bit of pushing within the firm. It's really just to have the experience of working with other law firms, not to make money. We're very, very far away from thinking of making money from this, but to try really hard to come up with a platform that all lawyers would find useful, and it's going to be neutral. It's not going to be branded, with any law firm's name. It's going to be completely neutral in terms of branding. Everybody will be able to use it if you want to use it. And we when we collaborate with other law firms with those kinds of motivation, just hoping to have the experience of participating in something which to us is very important for the legal community worldwide now. I think it removes a lot of the tensions and the conflicts, because we are all sort of just pulling towards coming up with the best product that we can, and giving all sorts of feedback as to what lawyers might need on this platform. And it's been a real experience, because this project has been led by law firms, but with the programming teams sort of taking a lot of the direction from the lawyers. In other words, the concept and what goes into the product in terms of the functionalities have been led by the lawyers, not just the firms. I mean, we consult many firms and many client organizations. So we've been having a lot of fun. It's been exciting, and we're really glad to be part of that journey. But as I said, the motivations must be correct. So hopefully the next time we meet, I can show you some real progress on the product. But for now, we're very, very thankful that we've been able to go on this journey, which is far from over.
Thank you. James, having heard everything that Eng Beng's got to say, what do you think that in-house counsel can learn from private practice and vice versa?
At a very general level, I think both in-house and private practice can learn a lot, not just from their peers, but from the other side of the profession. I think, in my experience, there's a broad range of competence and incompetence on both sides. When you look at what can be learned, it tends to be very similar. So it's the flexibility of mindset, it is the ability to affect change. But fundamentally, I think whether you're in-house as a lawyer or whether you're in a private firm, you need to watch the signs. You need to see where your clients are going. And I don't mean just following and being reactive, but you need to develop a sense as to where the trends are going, because you never want to be playing catch up if you can help it. And if you are playing catch up, you're rarely going to be in the top quartile of anything that you're doing. So there has to be a degree of, it's a bit like looking for a business development deal or a drug. You have people who go spot around the world. They look for the new trends, they look for the new technology, the new management techniques. And I think for both in-house and private practice, the learnings actually are the same at the more progressive end. And I don't think there's a huge differentiation between them, given that ultimately you follow your client, you follow the thinking and the direction of travel.
Thanks, James. Mark, what are your observations?
Well, first, I want to just comment very briefly on what both James and Engbeng said. For James, you know, it was sort of a greatest hits album for me, all in a matter of 5 minutes. He said 8 things that really resonated with me. Let me just tick them off, if I may. One was, you know, digital transformation is an ongoing journey. Couldn't agree more. You know, business is not stopping for law. Business is continuing to innovate at a gobsmacking pace. Law has got to keep up if it's going to be relevant. So it's very much an ongoing journey. And in fact, if people think they're going quickly now, it's only going to get faster. Number 2, he mentioned, you know, the notion of team. Law has historically not been a team sport. I know because I was a managing partner of 2 firms. You know, and lawyers have got to start recognizing we have to be a team, as Engbeng said. I love the idea, Engbeng, that you're playing nicely in the sandbox with other firms. You know, these are things, you know, other fields do this routinely. We've got to start getting over legal culture that says everything we do is necessarily, you know, got to be proprietary. They're conflating the practice of law with the business of delivering legal services. 2 different but interrelated things. James also mentioned talent. What was talent 10 years ago is not necessarily talent today. Talent is not just about pedigree. Talent is not just about going to the right school, being in the right, you know, percentile of your class. Talent is about having particular skills that are required to get the job done. So I think we as lawyers have to take a much broader view of what talent means. He said, you know, more space in the value chain. Again, you know, it's who's doing what and who is appropriate for the right task. You know, you don't need a senior partner to be doing legal research. In fact, I would argue you don't need a high-priced law firm to be doing most legal research either. You want professionals of any type to practice, you know, up to their level of competency, not down to a lower level. He mentioned different skill sets. You know, law has never been much for multidisciplinary work, which is always the bane of my professional existence. I don't understand why law shouldn't have been multidisciplinary generations ago. But increasingly, you're going to be seeing that now. He mentioned highest value for the lowest effort. You know, that is a very profound statement, because it really, you know, it takes into play what tools, what resources should we be employing to make that formula work. You know, the highest value for the lowest effort. He mentioned, of course, change management, which we've covered. But again, one more time with feeling, I think I had the pleasure of speaking with Eric Brynhofsen on several occasions. Eric is a faculty advisor on our digital legal exchange. He ran MIT. He's a very famous economist whose focus is digital transformation. He told me, Mark, you know, if we had no new technology for 20 years, only then would human behavior begin to capture the full potential of what already exists. If that's not a profound statement of, you know, the need for change management, I don't know what is. And finally, James talked about customers. And my message to lawyers is, lawyers, it's not about you alone anymore. It's about the customers. Anybody who's in business will tell you, from Jeff Bezos on down, it's about the customers. And we in the legal industry have to, start developing that mindset. I would just simply say to Eng Beng, you are the kind of managing partner or partner emeritus or emerita who I think is absolutely thinking the right way. I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that I think that there are certain inherent structural challenges to the partnership model in the digital age. This is not about a law firm bashing. It is a simple statement of structure. And I think that, to your comments, Eng Beng, about, getting partners to move in the right direction, I couldn't agree with you more. But maybe your experience is different than mine. I have really found that anybody who wants to, attend a partner compensation meeting will realize that, to get partners to be aligned, particularly about issues of money, which very often it comes down to, not philosophy, but money and the share of the pie, that is a very difficult challenge. I think it is a challenge that structurally people in-house don't have to make as much. And I also think that people in-house lawyers, I've described, they have kind of morphed from 30, 40 years ago. They were more of glorified traffic cops. Now they are cast in, the role of law's astronauts. Because I'm sure James has spent a whole hell of a lot of time with the C-suite, and as he said, law is not getting a hall pass anymore. So I'll end this soliloquy by saying that, Eng Beng, kudos to you for, fighting the good fight here. At the end of the day, I don't think it should be a distinction between, someone working at a firm and working in-house. We are all lawyers. We should be focused on clients, and we should be focused on results. And I think we're going to move to a day where those distinctions are going to be, somewhat anachronistic. And I think what we're really going to be looking for is who is the right resource to get the job done.
Thank you, Mark. And if I could be as presumptuous to say that I loved your list, but I think probably James and Eng Beng are too modest to have pointed out one of the things that I have found most helpful working in Allen & Overy with the senior leadership team that we have, which is working in an organisation where the leaders are ambitious and brave has been the single most useful thing for me in trying to set Allen & Overy upon a digital transformation journey. And Eng Beng and James, just kind of listening to you talk and your passion and but also your humility and it's sort of admitting the bits that you don't know, it is really, it's very inspiring, and I hope that others are listening and feeling the same as I am. So it's not all doom and gloom. Lawyers aren't completely set in their ways. And I think one of the things that has most forced the change upon us has been the pandemic. Rena, we'd love to hear from you what you think the impact on the pandemic on the digital transformation journey has been, and the extent to which it's accelerated something that was already coming down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we have this running joke in the tech industry. Who drove the digital transformation? Is it a CEO, CFO, or COVID? It's COVID, right? What we had seen in the digital transformation that typically would take 2 years got accelerated in 2 months, right? So that's kind of a rate of digital transformation that COVID or the pandemic has forces the business to think about how they move to digital. And what Mark and James is saying, the businesses are evolving, right? What we have seen is the businesses are being pushed to transform digitally. So we have seen this across all industry. And we have seen this, there are a couple of factors because of that. One is a lot of businesses are forcing to lockdown. Where they used to be able to do the work in the office, that does not happen anymore, right? They are forced into a remote work situation, which many of us are in, right? I mean, I've been working remotely and working from home for the past 18 months. Right, I think it's the same for a lot of you. So when you think about in that context, so the remote work context is going to stay. So we have done a survey across 30 over countries and 30,000 people, right? In terms of what is the future of work going to look like. What the survey is telling us that more than 70% of the employee actually prefers to remote work or the hybrid work arrangement. And a lot of the business owner actually is looking into how are they going to accommodate this type of work arrangement in the future, right? We know that, the way we work before will no longer be the same, how we're going to continue to work, right? So that's kind of one of the factors that we've seen a lot of businesses and the industry evolving in terms of how they accommodate the whole hybrid work environment. So when you think about in a hybrid work environment, then your business process will need to change, right? So I think Ingbing and James talk about some of the technology initiatives that you guys have done, right? So if you are still on the paper-based in the traditional business and traditional processes, you'll no longer be able to adapt to this new way of work. And you need to think about how do you evolve your business processes to accommodate this new future of work. So, and definitely digital transformation is a requirement of that to support the employee and the businesses continue to support that whole hybrid work arrangement. So that's kind of what we've been seeing. And I think, you talk about the talent retention as well. How do you retain talent in the legal field? So part of the survey that we did also is, looking at the millennials, right? So the young talent that are coming out from college. And what we also found out that, they are a lot more digital savvy, and they actually prefer to work for a company who has the right digital tools and processes available for them to do a good job, right? So you think about in the next generation or the new talent coming into the workforce, what they'll be, requiring or as part of their job satisfaction will be what type of technology they will be using to do their work. So that's kind of some of the trend that we're seeing because of the changes, because of the pandemic. And then a lot of these trends are here to stay. We don't see ourselves going back to the way we work, back to the office, 9 to 5. I think that's not going to be the way going forward. And this is a global trend. Yeah.
Thanks, Rena. I suppose one of the big challenges of the pandemic for me has been trying to explain to my husband that when I'm on a work call, he probably shouldn't appear, but he bought me a coffee, so I can't tell whether I'm cross or just grateful that someone's bought me a drink for my day. Anyway, apologies about that. It's interesting to hear you talk, because where we are in London, we've kind of, I think, started to go back to work. And it's interesting to me, the early observations is how quickly we are starting to go back to life as we knew it. And so, yes, I would completely agree that the pandemic forced a change upon us. But I think perhaps at this point, the more interesting question is how do we take those lessons and ensure that they didn't just apply to that one single set of circumstances, and that we don't all find ourselves going backwards slowly. So I suppose what I'm asking is, how do we ensure that digital transformation isn't just a flash in the pan, and that instead the things that we've done give us some sustained impact and we continue to be able to drive that forward without the external force of a pandemic? I'd love to hear all of your observations. Engbeng, starting with you, if that's okay.
I think I agree with what Rena has said. The pandemic has really sort of turbocharged the adoption of digital tools as far as the lawyers are concerned. Looking back, I wish we had a little bit more time to plan this. Of course, it wasn't possible. We didn't know this would happen, but we should have had maybe a couple of months to figure out exactly what digital tools should each lawyer be getting familiar with, because not, as Mark has pointed out, it's not all tools which should be used by all the lawyers. I myself found that I was sort of, in my anxiety to work effectively from home, picked up the use of digital tools, which have proved not to be very frequently needed for my role. And so there was no proper organization on that. And I think that there will have to come a stage where we sort of configure all that. I think there's going to be a period of properly configuring exactly how this new sort of partly work from home or the fuller digital reliance is going to work for all of us. Number two, I think the second point is really in terms of sustainability. Our experience is that working from home at the height of the pandemic has led to quite a lot of overwork. It's impacted on I think mental wellness. It has seriously affected the effectiveness of mentoring and simply sort of bonding with colleagues. And sometimes that's very important. I think we can sort of live without that for a year or two, but I don't think we can live without that for a prolonged period. So I think that's going to be critical as well. So a period of reconfiguration and also to sort of reintroduce the human element back, to a sufficient level. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
So I agree with everything that Eng Beng and Rena have said. I think digital transformation has accelerated in an unprecedented way because of COVID. I think there's been a step change in productivity as a result. But I think there's also flashing red lights of danger if we don't get the balance right for the future, because I don't believe transformation in the digital sense is sustainable without having a human contact balance, whether it's coming in and being part of a team, whether it's learning from the senior lawyers or the partners in the room. Those things are harder to do over the screen. And there has to be a place to develop people's careers, make people feel part of something, ease the burden on the. I think the mental wellness point is a really big one. And there's been no separation between work and home. Actually, fundamentally, quite a dangerous dynamic has been established for the long term. So we have to find a balance, and we're doing that, but it will take time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I mean, perhaps the most dangerous thing, as I say, is having a husband who just appears on your conference call when uninvited. Mark?
Trudy, all I can say is I wouldn't want to be your husband after this session is over.
I thought you were just going to say you didn't want to be my husband, Mark.
No. I was careful to qualify it. But hey, cut him some slack. He meant well, I'm sure. But more seriously, I think, to the human element, I completely acknowledge that is very important. No question about it. But I think that, we're going to find a balance. It's not going to be an either or. I think the more important thing to me is that, it's really an opportunity for us to reimagine what is possible, given the tools that are available to us now, given the processes, given the opportunity that the tools create to have new models and new ways of working. And I think at the end of the day, for me, digital transformation starts with, what's the objective? And the objective is to change the paradigm between provider and consumer. And to do it in a way that end-to-end is going to be a whole lot better for the consumer. And if that's, if we can stipulate, as we lawyers say, if we can stipulate that is the outcome that we want to achieve, then it becomes a process of reverse engineering. And what can we do to achieve that desired outcome? I was a trial lawyer for many, many years. You get your case as you find it, and so it's a matter of how am I going to be able to convince the jury, in this case, how am I going to be able, if I'm a leader, to convince my team that this is the way we're going to achieve our outcome, and it's good for everybody if we adapt that. That, to me, is the essence of the challenge of digital transformation, is getting people to be aligned with a sense of purpose and agree that this is the outcome we're in. And anybody who's ever played a team sport knows that, not everybody's going to be the quarterback, as it were. And everybody has got to play a role, and the success of the whole is going to be determined by each individual playing her or his role.
Thanks, Mark. Rena, one of the things that you said earlier kind of stuck with me, and I'd like to just pick it up again, which is you talked about the importance of being able to iterate. And I think the reason it stuck with me is because for lawyers, not getting things right the first time is a very, very uncomfortable place to be. And I think one of the key things that we are going to have to become comfortable with if we are to have this kind of sustained impact is to become comfortable. You know, at the beginning of COVID, we were all kind of like, oh gosh, it doesn't work, we're so sorry. But we felt that it was acceptable because everybody was in the same boat. I think now we're going to see that people are going to have to continue to be uncomfortable with the change, but without a kind of an excuse behind it. What's your advice to us as an industry?
In terms of how you can get comfortable with the change?
Yes. And the process of iteration and getting things wrong and being prepared to accept the mistakes, because I think that also needs to start to become at the heart of our culture.
Yeah, I think because I've been in the tech industry, so change is a constant for us, right? So we're used to change every day, and then mainly because of the advancement in the technology and the business environment change, right? And I think, you know, with the recent pandemic, and all of us are kind of adapting to a lot of changes, especially I think for the young folks, they will be a lot easier in terms of adapting to the change. I will say what James was mentioning earlier is having that team of people who are expert in that field to drive the change. And then I think a lot of the energy will come from, you know, people who is coming from outside, who is not in the field, and people who is younger generation, who is more adaptable to change, who is more adaptable to the technology. Then slowly you will drive some of those changes going on in the organization. So it's kind of how we usually have seen some of the change management happen, right? Because they're a lot more adaptable to the changes. And having a little bit of diversity in terms of in the team, also that will help, right? Bringing in a different diversity point of view coming from outside, or even from different field, that will also encourage some of this different mindset and different changes in the field. I think we have the advantage because we're in the tech industry, right? We have people from a different type of discipline, right? Different type of background and different type of education background as well. So that kind of helps us to kind of bring in a whole different culture aspect into the way how we do run the business, right? And I think, you know, it sounds like based on what Ing Beng and then Mark and James were saying, in terms of how the law firm operates, right, is pretty structured. And then, you know, you guys have a system and then hierarchy that flows with that. I will say, you know, based on what James is saying, you know, having that team of expert who is really good in that field, driving the change management operations, getting the team buy-in and building a collaboration across, I think that is really a good model. That we have seen, you know, once typically a business who has this type of structure will drive a lot of success in terms of how they drive the digital transformation in the organization.
Thank you so much, Rena. So we're coming to a close now. Mark has always been, not afraid to admit it, a big hero of mine, and I love the way that you have picked up everyone's points of interest, and so I've copied you. I hope you don't mind. And I have done the same. So having collected everyone's thoughts, I just wanted to leave you with a few final things that really landed with me. It turns out that the hallmarks of a positive digital transformation aren't just the use of tools or understanding AI or data, but rather at its heart lies a change in culture. In order to do this, we need to know and understand the why, the what, and the how. And importantly, we must be prepared to iterate. We heard from James some really good tangible examples about what's impossible, and I hope that people have taken note of those and feel that they might try and look at doing some of those things in their own organisations. But he also picked up Rena's why, so looking at talent development and retention, and looking at trying to get the highest value for the lowest effort. And most importantly, remembering that digital transformation isn't going to happen around us, and that we must move at pace in lockstep with our clients. From a private practice perspective, we've heard about how organisational culture is key, and how digital transformation requires top-down cultural change. We've also talked about the responsibility of partners to act as the guardians of a firm, handing something over to the younger generation. And seeing as I count myself still as one of the members of the younger generation, I'm absolutely on board with that, Ing Beng. I love the fact that that mindset has opened up pathways for you as a firm to do things that you may not have thought possible, such as collaborating with other law firms. We talked about the silver lining of the cloud that's been COVID, that it's given us a huge push forward and moving us along in the digital transformation journey. And I understand that it hasn't been without its challenges, and it's made it harder for people to mentor and connect as individuals, and also to ensure that we do what we can to get the balance right between digital and in person. But I think Mark was right and hit the nail on the head, and this is the reason he's my hero, is because he said it gives us an opportunity to reimagine the art of the possible. And my final thought is that takes brave and inspirational leadership. And genuinely, each of you have inspired me today. I hope we've also inspired the people who've been listening. And I just really wanted to thank you for your honesty and for your fantastic conversation. I personally have loved listening to you all.